Hey everybody! In today's video, I'm going to be going over a few habits that a lot of people deal with and they don't even realize that it can be linked to anxiety. So let's get to it. So there are a lot of habits that humans have that they utilize as coping mechanisms in the way of stress, anxiety, and even anger. And yes, there's a fine line, between stress and anxiety. There's the general stress that we have on a regular basis, but if it starts to create certain habits that help us cope that aren't necessarily beneficial for us, but it is some way for us to physically move through that anxiety, then it's good to be able to observe that and see if there is a different way for us to help relax our nervous system and to have healthier coping mechanisms. So, one of the things that a lot of people do is biting their nails or picking their skin. And this is something that sort of brings us into more of a feeling of control. Like when we are biting or picking, a lot of times people don't even recognize that they're doing it. But when our external environment is feeling stressed to us, doing something such as that brings us into an internal regulation, if you will, state of feeling in control. Now, that's not necessarily, of course, the way that we desire to regulate our nervous system. We want a healthier way to cope with our stress and our anxiety. But that seems to be a go-to one for a lot of people without even realizing it. Another one is harsh or fast chewing. So that a lot of people call them angry chewers. Chewing in and of itself is actually a very primal coping mechanism. Animals do it. The jaw clenching itself is done in animals. Watch a dog. They will clench their jaw when they're angry or there's fear. So when people aggressively chew, it actually does help bring their emotional state and all of those chemicals, brain chemicals, into balance. But that being said, that's why we gravitate oftentimes, if we are in an emotionally dysregulated state, to those crunchier foods. We want those crunchy potato chips or pretzels or the granola bar. That is, like I said, that's something that is helping us emotionally regulate. Obviously, that can start to create physical tension within our jaw if we're in a consistently dysregulated state, and that's all we do is clench the jaw or go for that super crunchy food. So, are there other ways, of course, for us to regulate our system and relax and bring some relief to that tension in our jaw? A lot of people don't really focus a whole lot on eating as enjoyment for taste and texture, rather the velocity at which they chew, because the faster you chew, the more you are relieving unresolved tension that has built up within you. So again, what are other ways to release that tension through nervous system regulation? And at the end of the video, I can talk a little bit about that. The other thing that a lot of people do again, this has to do with the mouth, but is chewing on the inside of their cheek, oftentimes creating a lot of sores within their mouths. Again, that goes back to that primal behavior of the chewing, bringing all of those brain chemicals into balance. So besides these oral coping mechanisms that a lot of people have, by the way, that's a lot of times why people desire a cigarette or vaping. It's just the oral relief that we get. So there is also physical pressure on our bodies. When we are in a heightened state of that fight or flight response, our nervous system is on overdrive. So that pressure up against our body, that's why a lot of people like weighted blankets, but that pressure up against our body relaxes that fight or flight response and puts the body in a state of rest when we can have that pressure. That's why little ones love hugs and snuggles when they are in need of comfort. And a lot of times just recently, I was speaking to somebody within one of my seminars that is talking about, she works with special needs kids, and they also help to regulate their nervous systems a lot by squeezing. They need that pressure and that squeezing. Another thing is honestly banging or hitting. And a lot of times, we see that scary coping mechanism of somebody like banging their head against a wall, or, banging their fists up against something, or just hitting in general. And of course, that is actually a coping mechanism, however, can obviously get to a dangerous point for themselves or other people, because it actually comes down to the vibration and the reverberation of the vibrations that they feel within their bodies. It's actually soothing to them. But vibrationally, there is a healthier way that they can move through that dysregulation, and it can be with sound, using sound healing. It can be internal sound with humming, and also utilizing the physical by tapping. A lot of people use, the tapping method. The other one that I absolutely love, and it's something that I teach within my seminars often, is thymus thumping. So thumping over your chest. In the wild, primates actually utilize, you see gorillas thumping their chest, and a lot of people assume that's an intimidation tactic, when in fact, they are actually trying to calm down their nervous systems, to regulate, so that they have the ability to respond properly to the situation that feels threatening. But when you are in an acute state of fight or flight, and you don't have the ability to release bigger sound with, earlier I had mentioned utilizing sound to relieve some of that dysregulation, which I love. Primal scream therapy as a singer, that's one of my favorites. Going into the car, that's a great way to release. If you have the ability to go on a mountaintop and to yell in that moment, that's fantastic. And sometimes when we have an incredibly amazing support system within our home, we can release audibly there. You can just merely explain, I am feeling really big emotions right now. I'm feeling dysregulated, if, you want to use those terms. And I need to get it out in some way because I don't want it to be stuck inside of me. If you have the ability to yell. If you are somebody that feels like you are going to punch something or someone, redirect. Go release that on a pillow. Take a towel and twist it. Get it out of your body in a productive and safe way. And do it without the guilt or the shame. Because a lot of times when we have those bigger feelings and, we cannot get rid of them, we feel like we have to stuff them down for fear of other people judging us for having those feelings, but we need to get them out. A lot of studies have shown that emotional suppression does lead to early death. And I actually just recently posted about that on Facebook. But the more we can release our emotions, move through them, and then get to a state of being able to explain to other people what happened and why, then you're on the path to that conscious communication and working together with other people as a team, because that's what we all desire. Ultimately, even if we're in such a deep pattern of anxiety or depression or anger, ultimately we all desire that freedom, that joy, and that collaboration with other human beings. And when we can come to the realization that these coping mechanisms that we have created for ourselves aren't productive and they are not loving to ourselves, then we can give ourselves grace that yes, they're happening, and yes, they might happen again because that pattern is so ingrained within us. But it doesn't have to define us. We can learn new tools and new ways to show ourselves love. And one of my most favorite tools thus far for rewiring those neural pathways that continue to perpetuate the habits has been hypnotherapy. And so I hope this video has been helpful and useful to you. And if you have found it to be, please like and give a comment as to what your coping mechanism is now and how you would like to move through it. And please also subscribe. It is so helpful to me that I am able to spread this message of love to others. I hope you have the most incredible day, and I wish you many blessings. All my love. And please also subscribe. It is so helpful to me. And please also